Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our April 25th Academic Affairs Committee meeting. I'm going to apologize in advance. I have a little bit of laryngitis, so periodically my voice is cracking, so I apologize. Thank you, Mr. Wexler, for putting in the agenda, a link to the agenda on board docs. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen also. Oh, no, I cannot. Mr. Wexler, could you allow me to share my screen? Mrs.
Go
Klein.
for it now.
Thank you. Are you all able to see that? Our agenda for this evening. We have some curriculum updates we'd like to share with you. A little bit bigger so I can see y'all. Okay. I have some curriculum updates to provide you this evening. We're going to talk to you about our ESSER funding and sort of where we're currently planning for that in the academic areas, our equity action plan updates, and then some overall updates from the Office of Teaching and Learning. Certainly there'll then be a time for public comments on agenda items at the end of the meeting. Dr. Adlin, if you're okay, I'd go ahead and get us started. Thank you. I'm very pleased this evening to share with you that our first agenda item is approval of our visual arts curriculum. We did share that with you in the posted agenda. Our art department has been working really hard with one of our consultants. We brought in an art teacher consultant to provide support to our team. I'm pleased to welcome Mrs. Allison Klein, one of our art teachers at Enfield Elementary School, to this evening's meeting. As you can see, the team worked diligently to create a number of resources as they rethought and revamped our art curriculum for the visual arts kids. First is that they landed on a proposed art education vision statement, really focusing their art department team, K-12, on what it is they'd like to see happen by the time our children graduate from high school. They moved into looking at a diversity, equity, and inclusion and accessibility statement, really making sure that our art program is robust in its design and helping students become lifelong learners and consumers and develop an appreciation for the arts, whether they're producing or viewing it. And finally, there are adaptations and accommodations, the ways in which they'll allow and work to support students in representing, sharing, and engaging in art in different ways in order to meet the needs of all of the students who attend our school district. Also published for you were the proposed summaries by grade band for Enfield, Erdenheim, middle school and high school, a focus of how the art department would be structured together, including the pathways to graduation in the high school. And then finally, the curricular material by grade band, the essential questions that guide that art instruction for that year, and then the national core standards that are aligned. And you can see that across a K-12 continuum. The team worked diligently throughout. This is the only active curriculum project we have open right now in writing. Given everything that's been happening, we postponed most of them. But our art department was so committed to getting this work done and knowing that they wanted to have the opportunity to reflect on their work, think about what students needed, and make some redesigns. They took that time. Mrs. Klein, do you want to talk at all about your experience in the curriculum revision process with your colleagues? I think you can unmute.
Sure. I wrote down a couple notes. I'm wondering if I can share the notes.
I don't think so.
Okay. So basically we stuck with the standards to develop our outline, and let me just see if I can grab my notes. So a couple other things we looked at were sample curriculums from other neighboring school districts. We looked at Central Bucks and Council Rock and the big three ones, North Penn, to see what they had in their curriculum structure. We also talked a lot of two differing art education pedagogies, DBAE, which stands for discipline-based art education. That's kind of like the old school philosophy. It's more teacher directed. And then we looked at TAB, which is what all the cool kids are doing right now. A lot of like the millennial art teachers are doing TAB, which is more choice-based art education, more like rotating centers, things like that. And Christy and I we were schooled in DBAE, but we're trying to change over to, well, not like complete tab, but just a amalgam of the two philosophies of DBAE and tab. So we've been talking a lot about that and considering maybe visiting some tab classrooms just to see like, you know, how some of the new art teachers are doing things, just to make sure we're like young and hip. So we were talking about that. Christy also bought a curriculum from a previous art teacher, Patty Palmer. It's called Deep Space Sparkle. And she's using some of the projects from that curriculum. And, you know, we also just looked to social media, and, you know, I belong to like a Facebook group that has about 15,000 art teachers that I look to see what they're doing. And, you know, we just follow the real art education stars. We look at, you know, Cassie Stevens, we look at Laura Lee Chambers, Caitlin Eddington. These are just some like, I guess you would say, just very popular art teachers that probably post, I would say, 2 or 3 times on Instagram a day. So they have probably, I would say, 20K followers, just like a big audience of people that follow them, and they post amazing work. So we look to them for inspiration. But yeah, do you guys have any questions for me?
Any questions?
I don't have any questions. I
Quiet.
just want to say that I'm like very impressed by the time and energy that went into this and how thoughtful it is to go from kindergarten all the way to senior year of high school and mapping out the whole art program. And I love the idea that you're trying to keep current, even if it isn't what feels in your comfort zone.
Yes, definitely. Like the challenge, I mean, the push and pull between the older teachers doing DBAE and the younger teachers doing tab, it's quite a, you know, so we're trying to mesh the two together because I like to give my students choice. So the work doesn't all look the same, like cookie cutter work, but at the same time, I do like directing them.
I think the other part of the work that you all did that was so important was really thinking about the artists that you share with the students and making sure that every student could see themselves in art and see work created by artists who brought in a wide range of perspectives.
I didn't mention the art history piece, but that's a whole nother. We do go through the gamut of the, you know, old masters and, you know, some of the more contemporary artists. And I'm finding with the students, they really respond to artists that are still living.
That's
been a focus.
And diverse perspectives of experience and life. And Mrs. Klein, I thank you, as I had mentioned to you personally, but also to the board, that you were able to bring in an artist in residence to visit with our Enfield students a week and a half ago. I'm losing track.
Yeah.
A week and a half ago, right before break.
Yeah.
Right before break, and I know that that was really well received, and he had an amazing energy that he brought to the
Oh, he was wonderful. Yeah.
Chicago. He lives in Chicago, if I'm not mistaken.
I think he grew up in Chicago. He lives in Atlanta now. Yeah.
So, is there any questions or any needs from the members of that board?
No, not at all. Allison, I have to congratulate you on a very well thought out project and all the creativity and how expansive across many different areas you had thought of to include in this curriculum plan. So for that, I thank you. Very well done.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Mrs. Klein, for being with us this evening. I believe that Dr. Scragan is with us as well. Dr. Scragan, I'm going to turn over our next item of agenda to you, our proposed new courses for the high school. If you'd like to sort of just provide a summary of why we decided to add all of these new electives and wonderful options for our students and how that came to pass for the departments, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, I'm just going to try to enlarge my screen so I can see what you have there on the screen. I have my copy with me too. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much. To start with, we have a number of new courses that we're offering, we'd like to offer, particularly in social studies. We know civics is going to be a course that's going to be required for the class of 2024. So we're going to be running it next year as an elective. I've now signed up. I think I have 1 or 2 sections to run next year. We'd also like to run an economics course. Again, those are both for 11th and 12th graders at half a credit. With the sequencing of social studies, what's happened is that this year, all 9th graders came in, and where they would usually take US or World History 2, they're actually taking US History 1. And so then next year, as sophomores, they'll take US History 2. And then their junior year, they would take Global Studies. And then their senior year, they'd be able to take 2 different electives to match their 1 credit requirement. That could be civics teamed up with African American studies, which you already have on the books. It could be with economics, which is what we're requesting to run as a course next year. It could be history through film, which was a very popular sign up. We have 3 sections I'm going to have to run of those next year if I can fill that request. We also have ethnic studies, which is a new course. Another popular one is history through film. The idea being that students could watch some modern films and see, how historically accurate are they? I think we know some of the big names of things like Amistad or Glory, or even The Patriot. How accurately portrayed are historical aspects in those movies. Then another one is kind of classified as street law, but it's really just kind of like laws that everybody should know, from traffic laws to general laws that anybody could find themselves in, and they would need to know the law, some just generic understanding of that. Those are all half credit courses taught in the social studies department. And so as a senior, you could take, eventually 2024 could take 2 of those courses and fulfill their full credit. And that's with our social studies department. If you could please scroll up, Dr. Johnson, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. For math, we're looking at a business math to replace what we currently have as integrated math. So students are required 3 separate math courses to graduate high school in Springfield Township. And students have multiple pathways to get there, from a typical sequence being usually Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, Trig Pre-Calc, Calculus, Statistics, maybe AP Calc, AP Statistics, Integrated Math, Multivariable Calculus. So there's a lot of different math students can take. And we're finding that with the way that things are kind of happening, more and more students are taking gap years, looking at options. So the idea would be for them to take a look at business math, math that they could, commonly use in different businesses to make them more successful once they graduate high school. And we'd also like to look at a concepts of geometry. That's a self-contained class run out of our special education coursework, where we currently have Algebraic Concepts 1, Algebraic Concepts 2, and now we're looking at concepts of geometry. Those courses would be definitely concepts of geometry would be running, and we would like to replace integrated with business for the same amount of credits. And then there's health and PE, a plethora of changes in health and PE. Typically, students would have to take PE 9-10, the same course for either 2 semesters or 2 years, and then they could branch out to a number of different courses. The PE department would like to change that and have PE 9 be the base PE course for all of their students. And then after that, you could go and take a great many variety of courses, from aquatics. We currently have lifeguarding, but we have aquatics for half a credit, fitness for life. We all could certainly use fitness for life. I know, just something as lifting weights and riding bicycle is great fitness for life. Added to our lifeguarding is our CPR training, and then which we currently have. Then there's racket net sport, which we currently have. Strength and conditioning, that was a slight change in one of the courses that we had. Team and lifetime sports would be yet another one. Again, you can see that all these are open to students. Once they've completed that first base year, they can branch off into a number of different PE courses. If you could scroll up for me, please, Dr. J. Otherwise, I could go up or down, please. Sorry. Probably just look at my curriculum guide. I've got it right here.
That's the end of it.
So Fitness for Life, team and lifetime sports are new, strength and conditioning, a change in physical education, and then the other big ones were nutrition, fitness, and health. I don't know if they're on your list there.
They're not.
Sports management and medicine. So those are the other two that are in the curriculum guide for students taking 11th and 12th grade. So again, most of these will be open for 10th through 12th graders, with some 11th through 12th because they felt that sports management and medicine should be taken after a student has completed health. And then I didn't see any of the performing arts, but I can talk about the new changes we're looking at with performing arts as well. So one of the new courses that looks very popular so far is piano and keyboarding, grades 9 through 12. And another one is digital music production for grades 9 through 12. That's actually going to be a dual enrollment with Monco. And for those of you that don't know how dual enrollment works, a student would be able to take the course from Mr. Puntel, and then if they paid a fee, I think it's like, I want to say $260 to $90, they could actually get dual enrollment credit through Montgomery County Community College. So we're excited about that. And then we offered it is AP Music Theory, which isn't new. It's already on the books, but we're actually going to be running it next year. So we're excited about that. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else, Dr. J, that we talked about that I missed. It's a lot of changes that we're looking at. And oh, the other changes were that a couple of our visual art classes, so they were a half semester or half credit. So on a block schedule, you basically get in one semester from September to the end of January, a full course, which when I was growing up, that was a full year, 180 days. Now it's 90 days, and students take a full course for a credit. But we also have courses that meet every other day for a half credit. And 3 of our visual art classes, photography 1, photography 2, and graphic arts, were every other day courses, but the art department felt that the students just weren't getting the computer time because everything on photography now is digital. And so they requested that we move that from a half credit to a 1 credit course. And so we were planning on doing that with photography 1, photography 2, and then graphic design. Those are the other big changes.
Thanks, Dr. Stragan.
I think I got them all. I'm hoping.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the member of our Board of School Directors?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to comment. I had the benefit of going to the curriculum night because I have my daughter's going into 9th grade next year, and I was blown away by every teacher that we encountered for all the curriculums, especially, and this is going to stand out because I wasn't the best high school student, and I think part of it, I'm not going to say it was the curriculum, but it's not all the student all the time. But I remember sitting at curriculum night in history, and I was blown away by the program that was being described. And I remember thinking, I hated everything about history when I was in high school. And it was just really refreshing to, well, one, see the energy of the teacher, but also hear about all of these new classes, because a lot of I think all of the classes that were discussed on curriculum night were also in your presentation now. So I'm very excited for the district. I'm excited for my daughter and for all the students. So thank you for sharing all this with us.
Thank you, Mr. DeFranco.
And I have a question. I want to go back to the math curriculum. And please correct me if I'm wrong. The concept of geometry for the special education classes, will that be replaced with a business option?
We're adding the concepts of geometry class. Some of our students with significant learning disabilities or those with intellectual disabilities have been taking algebraic concepts 1 and 2.
Okay.
They need an appropriately designed third math program. And so we've been talking about this concepts of geometry, and
Okay.
now we're ready to come forward, and we have students who are in need of that course.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for the clarity.
Of course. Other questions? Thanks, Dr. Scragan. I appreciate it. All right, moving right along without any other questions. We did want to provide an overview. We've talked a lot about our ESSER funding that we have received, and we've talked a little bit in other committees and in our larger board meeting on our priorities for that funding as it impacts the educational program. Most notable for us is the posting and the recommendation for 2 full-time math specialists. Based on the intervention information we have and the assessments we've had, we still have concerns around some of the students and their math learning as it results from the absences from COVID. Particularly the more abstract math concepts where students were not able to practice in the way they may have been able to practice in the past, excuse me, is certainly taking a toll. And so what we've decided and what we're recommending based on those data points was that we would hire a math specialist to work at Enfield and at Erdenheim to work in conjunction with our math instructional coach and our classroom teachers in ensuring a full array of support, both in classroom support as well as some pull-out intervention. And this person will serve on the building data team at Enfield and Erdenheim to help, just like our reading specialists do with reading, around the area of mathematics. And also to look for overlap between the students who are having issues in reading and in mathematics, and make sure that we're targeting that intervention appropriately. Dr. Markle, Dr. McLaurin, any comment or anything you wanted to add from your building about those math specialists?
No, I think it's just important to share that for the board to be aware. I know that we've had the opportunity to meet and really discuss this role and how it can truly impact and support our students, our staff, and our families. You know, the area of math has been one that we've continued to keep an eye on over the past couple of years as we've adopted our new math curriculum resource with Envisions. And so we've been able to learn a lot more about that program. We've been able to identify specifically where our students are struggling. And it'll be nice to have someone at the elementary levels to be able to help support and focus in that particular content area, just so that we can better support our students and continue to see growth in that area. So we are appreciative to the district leadership and to the school board for just giving us the opportunity to add that additional resource to our school communities.
Yeah, I'd also just like to add that, you know, especially at the K-2 level, I think this addition of a specialist is so key. We can really try to help target some areas that we can really improve with our students at the lower level, right? So by the time they get to Erdenheim, maybe we've kind of closed some of the gaps that we're seeing. And then I think also it's just a unique opportunity to help build the capacity of our teachers too. And like, how can you best support, like having one person really focus on math. I think it's going to be really a huge asset to our both schools. So we're really looking forward to having this position.
Dr. Markle, thanks, Dr. McLaurin. Members of our board of school directors, any questions for us?
I don't have a question. I just want to I apologize for being late. I just think this is such a critical role in the building in regards to math. I'm really looking forward to them being able to support the teachers, I hear, and making sure that they're doing best practice. It's really stretching themselves. A lot of times the math specialist comes in and they may have something new or different. There may be a teacher that needs a little extra support in one area and how they are instructing. So I really am excited about and hoping that the teachers accept this role as someone that's going to really pair with them to really also improve their craft as they're teaching our students. So I'm really excited about that.
Thanks, Mrs. Green. We're excited too. As you know, we're fortunate to have an instructional coaching team. And so we have one dedicated instructional coach who's focused on mathematics. So it's really going to be nice for her to have a point person in each building where she can work to build capacity and then have a variety of perspectives in order to meet the needs of our students by our classroom teachers and present specialists. Great. The second priority area that we have identified, both from our family feedback, our faculty feedback, is the idea of mental health for our students following COVID. I worry sometimes when I hear mental health because I feel like it's become the buzzword. Oh, we need to worry about mental health. We need to worry about mental health. But for us, what we've talked about is What are the specific areas where our students are having difficulty where either they did before and we had an unmet need, or where those needs have become more notable? The addition of Dr. Lutz to our team, I anticipate really fleshing us out over the next few months over the summer as we look at our data and talk about what we need. But our current understanding of where student needs are sometimes in ways that we had not seen before. Student attendance to school and avoidance of school has exponentially grown, and families' struggles to get their children to come to school consistently every day is a real challenge. And so one of the things that we're targeting is how might we provide some innovative support to our families and to our students in managing that. Every family who's sitting in their living room trying to get their child out the door is doing the best that they can. They need some skills and some support. How might we provide that? So we're working with some of the provider agencies and partners that we've worked with in the past to identify some resources to bring in and provide either some group sessions or working with families in their homes. What are some things we can do that really help to make things better for kids and families on a day-to-day basis? In addition, our school counselors are tremendous individuals across our 4 buildings. They're constantly working to balance the academic and social emotional needs of our students. At times, there are some students who are in crisis and need more than a school counselor might be able to provide. So we're also looking at whether or not we need some crisis counseling. Do we need someone who's available sort of on an as-needed, immediate basis when students are having a mental health crisis during their school day? Their struggles with anxiety are real. The ways in which they're able to cope with the competing pressure, prioritize all the demands on their time. We want to make sure that we're supporting them to the best of our ability. So those are just 2 examples of ways in which we're thinking about supporting mental health and social emotional learning for our learners using the assessor toddlers. And I apologize for my scratchy voice. It's cracking. Any questions or comments about that?
Yes, my question is with the concern around attendance and school avoidance, as well as our students in crisis. Are you currently taking data? And if so, how far back after the pandemic have you been taking the data? And how do you plan to monitor or evaluate once the support is put in place?
That's a fantastic question, Dr. Edlin. We have lots of data because we have current, as you know, functioning MTSS teams at each building. And these same students are often the discussion of how to target interventions and supports. So we're able to talk about the need. What we have not yet been able to create is a strategy to support the families and the children in improving some of those areas beyond working with, once the absences are so significant that we're referring to the Office of Children and Youth. We want to catch those students before we need to make those referrals and provide some internal supports and resources. So I'll be working with Dr. Lutz this summer to really craft those out and then figure out those metrics so that we can decide what is our area of need and how will we know we've made the impact we intended. You're welcome.
Dr. Johnson, if you wouldn't mind, I just, as a refresher for the members of the board, at Dr. Johnston's midwinter report, the achievement report, which is also on our website and we'd be happy to resend to you. Enclosed in that presentation was an update on where our mental health services are and the extent to which families are taking advantage of therapeutic services at school. And one of the areas that we have seen over the course of the pandemic is a fairly significant increase. Now, overall numbers are still low relative to the total population, but we saw a fairly significant increase in families availing themselves of therapeutic services during the school day and through local agencies. We actually see that as a positive in that mental health has been in many ways destigmatized over the course of the pandemic. And so families who may have been reticent to avail themselves of those services pre-pandemic are now feeling more comfortable to do so. So it's actually a positive in that our students are getting help that they need. Families are getting help that they need. And the agencies that we have available to us and the staff we have in the schools are really they're very helpful. In that, overall attendance rates for all 4 schools are excellent. We are at pre-pandemic levels of attendance. So while you may read in national studies or in articles about challenges around truancy, we have our families that struggle with truancy, as Dr. Johnson noted, but overall attendance is outstanding in Springfield.
Dr. Lutz, I don't want to put you on the spot. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Just that I'm looking forward to crunching some of the data and making sure that our interventions are getting the bang for the buck that we hope for them.
Thanks, Dr. Lutz. Any other questions from members of our board? Okay. The third area that we've identified as a resource is continued professional learning for our faculty. As I've spoken about with this group throughout the year, we've had two primary focus areas, really building our knowledge of universal design for learning, UDL, making sure that we're looking at the wide array, wide array of learner variability of the students who come to our classroom, and then the ways in which we can work to remove those barriers. Our focus this year has been in Erdenheim and providing training to their faculty. And I think I mentioned in our last meeting that we had scheduled training for all members of the Erdenheim faculty at a professional development day earlier this winter, I think in January. We're continuing to build their skills. Dr. McLaurin and I, along with other members of our core planning team, are meeting this week to flesh out our next steps on universal design for learning. Dr. McLaurin, I saw you came back on screen. I'm not sure if you have anything you want to add about our UDL work or its impact to your faculty.
Yeah, I just want to share, when we had our professional development earlier this year, I want to share our staff was really excited. They saw the value in the UDL approach. And it also resonated because it also connects with things that they've already been doing in the classroom. However, this UDL approach can be expanded in so many different areas. And so the staff is excited. We're excited to continue to learn. And so we're hoping that over the next couple of weeks and months, we'll be able to really move forward with the plan. But I just wanted to share from just an overall standpoint, our staff is really excited about the UDL work that we have planned.
We're excited too. And finally, under Dr. Lutz's leadership, we're going to continue to do work on educating our MTSS teams, making sure that we're looking not only through a lens of universal design for learning, but also trauma-informed practices, really thinking about the students who are coming to us and have we considered the ways in which barriers to learning may have existed for those students, and have we worked to remove those systemic barriers in addition to individualized learning barriers. So we want to make sure that we're providing professional learning to our MTSS teams on an ongoing basis throughout next year. Any questions or comments around professional learning? Okay, seeing none. And our final fourth and near and dear to my heart is our Spartan Academies. Excuse me. We are excited again to bring back Spartan Academies this summer. Currently, as of today, we have 150 registered students from across our school districts, grades 1 through 8, who want to participate in a 2-week session, 8 days of learning this summer. We've hired our coordinators, so we're excited about that. Our 2 coordinators are coming back. And then we're working to hire our faculty and staff, including school counselors, nurses, and reading specialists, to integrate not only that curiosity and excitement for learning, but opportunity for skill acquisition for those learners who need some additional practice this summertime. So we're excited to operate that again this summer and are looking forward to seeing positive results. We've heard really positive impact. A number of the staff who worked last summer are looking to come back because they saw what a positive impact they had last year coming into this school year and are hoping for the same next year. Any questions or comments around Spartan Academies? All right. The next area of update that we wanted to provide to you was really thinking about our equity action plan. We've been on a roadshow talking all about sort of the first year. We've waited and waited for Dr. Lutz to join us, and she has been on board for exactly 1 week. And we have given her plenty to do, and including some leadership at our upcoming Equitable Practices meeting on Wednesday night. So she's all ready to go. But some of our big areas that relate to this committee in particular is really around curriculum access. And one of the pieces of feedback that we heard really powerfully from the community, particularly from families and students, is they really don't understand sort of how our curriculum fits together and what it is they can anticipate their child learning year to year. And after we reviewed some websites of surrounding school districts, what we found was that we have a lot of very dense teacher-friendly unit plans and curriculum maps on our website. But the materials are not necessarily written for children and families to comprehend and understand which leads to that idea of EduSpeak, which came out of the surveys that we had done and the interviews. So what we want to do this summer, our hope is by the end of the first year of our equity action plan, is that we'll have grade specific guides for each grade level that will help families and children know what to expect. What are the primary things they'll learn, the content and skills that they'll learn at each grade level in their special area classes as well as in their core curricular areas. So we anticipate working on that heavily this summer to get those published and ready to go and share them with this committee next fall. Questions or comments about that?
I just want to say that that sounds fantastically helpful for a lot of the feedback that we hear and that you see around the community. I'm excited for this.
Thank you.
I am too, and I hope that once the guides have been formulated and ready to go, that we can announce at a board meeting to ease community concern about where they are and how to access. And I think this will alleviate some of the questions that we have received throughout the last year.
I'll tell you, I thought that feedback has been so helpful because I don't think we ever considered who was reading those documents. We were thinking about posting them and making them available, but I had not thought about in the way that it is as the feedback has come to us, which just suggests to me that feedback makes us better, right? Like, so that we really want to make comprehensible ideas so that children can know, wow, I'm going to be in second grade next year. What am I going to learn? You want to be able to access that whenever that conversation happens with your family, or whenever families want to know what are the kinds of big ideas that are happening. In addition, it's helpful to our staff so that they're able to really focus their work. Our specials teachers have raised that, as Mrs. Klein, who has left us, talked about, like, how is she sure what's happening in second grade so she can tailor her learning in art to what's happening in the second grade. So I think there'll be a lot of bang for our buck as we do this. So it's a really exciting project. Dr. Yannicone keeps talking about I have big plans for the summer, but this is the one I'm most excited about.
And then I'm also excited that it's going to combat things like misinformation. There's a bunch of bad information that gets spread around, and for the district to really have a spot on the website where it's authoritative and it's accurate, and clear, it's going to be great.
Right now, we have a 57-page document about 7th grade history. I don't think it's reasonable to assume that children or families are digesting that information. So I think our faculty will be excited also because they want the information to be clear and transparent to everyone who's going to use it. So I look forward to it. It's an exciting opportunity. So again, we benefited from the feedback. Professional learning, we've used the word flex a lot this year, whether it's flex at the middle school or flex at the high school, or my favorite purpose of flex, which was for our professional development for our teachers. Really empowering our teachers for their 21 hours of exchange day time to be able to create self-directed professional learning. We had almost 98% participation in at least some of the flex hours this year. Our faculty really went above and beyond in finding purposeful, personalized learning for themselves, whether that was in the nature of going to a conference or a workshop on a weekend or in the summer or in the evening. They did that. Some did book clubs. Some organized book studies amongst themselves. Second grade did a book study at each of the teachers' houses, and they rotated. A number of the teachers at Enfield really focused on the science of reading. They were hearing it on the news. They wanted a thorough understanding of what the science of reading was. They wanted to understand how we were doing and how their students were doing. So they went in search of that information under the direction of their reading specialists. So we've been really excited. Some of the equity work has shown up. There has been some work around sort of how I better organize my classroom. What's some good adolescent information to engage learners in dialogue and discourse? So it's been fascinating as someone who gets to read all the activities as teachers are demonstrating their learning, all the exciting things that they've had the opportunity to do to impact their practice. Some have been little tiny things, and some have been large ideas around communication and how to manage the mental health of the students in their classrooms. So we're excited to continue to build on that for next year. We're already starting planning. We just finished the first year. And so we're also going to do some listening tours and hear from faculty, like, is there anything else we could do to support them in accessing their flex time? That was a really good piece of our work this year. Questions around professional learning? Dr. Lutz, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I do have a question. I don't know what your hiring is in terms of teachers coming right out of the university or right out of college straight into Springfield. And I just wanted to know, could you just talk a little bit on what maybe those first year supports might look like for a new teacher? I'm saying this or bringing this up because being a supervisor in the past of teachers getting their certification, the last 2 or 3 years was very difficult for teachers to get a mentor, get in the classroom, get that feel as they're going through that educational process for themselves. And so when you're hiring them into a school, what kinds of things that may be different might you be thinking about doing to support those new teachers?
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to answer this question because this is another very exciting thing we've been working on all year. Dr. Yannicka is laughing because she knows that I get really get going. So someone's gonna have to give me the wrap it up signal. I'll keep going too long, but my voice will probably cut out by then, so I'll be fine. I think it's an important question for our brand new faculty. But honestly, even what we found this year was we had some new faculty who were tenured in other school districts who came to us, who had unanticipated challenges. They sort of thought they were just going to sort of come do the same job they had always done. And what they found out was coming to a new school district was almost as difficult as just getting started, because we have our own systems and our own language and our own communication style that they need to become familiar with. We have a really comprehensive 2-year induction program in Springfield Township. The first year focuses really on the day-to-day nitty-gritty of getting used to sort of our school district and what's expected. Every new faculty member who's here is assigned a mentor immediately upon their arrival. That's decided in conjunction between the building principal and myself on a good match. Those folks are expected to meet for at least 20 minutes to a half hour every week in the beginning of the school year, just to touch base and make sure, and there's some talking points to help them get started with that work. Our instructional coaches meet with every new teacher every other week, either by themselves or in a small group, depending. This year we had a couple of teachers at the same grade level, so the one instructional coach met with the 2 teachers together. But they meet with them every other week just to provide support. In addition, they meet with me throughout the course of the school year. So we've had 6 meetings. We have 2 full days of instruction before the year starts. And then we have 6 after-school meetings throughout the course of the year. And then I meet with each new staff member in their first year 2 times by themselves, one-on-one, either to do an observation or to have a conversation or to join in and debrief on what's going well and where they need more support. We sent out surveys throughout the first year just to get some feedback on how they're doing. And what they've told us overwhelmingly is how close they feel to their staff, how connected they feel to their building principals, how visible they are, and how much support they've received. They've given us some feedback on how I can change the program to make sure that we're focusing on the minutia that gets in their way. So the high school staff, for example, suggested that I need to provide more training next year on using the Teacher Access Center, which is our grade reporting and where they put in their grades. That we made some assumptions that an overview would be sufficient. They made it clear that it is not an intuitive system. They'd like a little more direct instruction. So our technology instructional coach, Mrs. Durham, is going to work with me to focus on making sure that they have all the instructional technology they need access to from the very beginning. So we're building an infrastructure to make sure that they are loaded with curriculum materials they need right away. And while we have lots of curriculum materials on our website in terms of the overview, what new teachers have shared is the day-to-day granular information hasn't been memorialized in one place. And so they were having to find and organize that. So we're building an internal system as a result of that to make sure they have access immediately to their grade level resources. So we're building and cleaning those up this summer as well. So that's year 1. Year 2, they participate in 2 more days of training, really with a UDL focus, as we just talked about, and really looking at learner variability. And then the instructional coaches provide 3 before, during, and after consultations with each member of the second-year cohort. And during those observations, work with the teachers to improve their practice and enhance their practice in meeting the instructional needs of their students. And at the end of those 2 years, and in the beginning of June, you as board members will have the opportunity to get to see them as we congratulate them on meeting the requirements of the 2-year program.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Not a question, but I want to comment on what you just said there. My favorite part of that whole thing, and remember, I'm not a teacher, so I don't really know what you all experience on a daily basis, but the fact that you have all of this in place, feedback surveys, and then you're actually taking the constructive feedback and implementing changes on the fly is it's amazing. It's how we fix things and how we make things better. And I love to hear that this is happening, and that we're taking feedback from new employees who have experience elsewhere, or who are, cutting their teeth for the first time ever, but actually taking it and listening to what they have to say. It helps the district grow and thrive. And I'm really impressed that that feedback loop is working appropriately.
Thanks, Mr. DeFranco.
Yeah, and I also have to echo your focus not only on the new teachers who are coming straight out of school, but more importantly on those who may be transferring to Springfield from other districts. And that is a group of teachers that are often forgotten, because when we travel from one district to another, the expectation and the assumption is we just can, hit the ground running, but that's not always the case, because there's a whole different culture no matter where you go. The culture and climate is totally different. So on that note, I truly applaud the focus for supporting those teachers who are transferring in.
Thank you. As I move us right along, Dr. Lutz, I don't know if there's anything you want to summarize from our family and teacher feedback from the parent conferences.
Sure. So we were able to collect some feedback from the conferences that just took place. We had 206 families that participated, which was a really great number for the first time for us doing this. It was offered in English and Spanish for this survey after the spring conference. However, we only got English surveys returned, but everyone had really positive things to say about their interactions at the conference and about the Springfield staff members that they encounter, which is, I think, a great kudos to all of the people working in our buildings with our students. And so we'll continue that follow-up with subsequent conferences to help us better take that feedback and hone in on what we need to do. We also collected some staff feedback, and I think the most important piece about that is that our staff has shared with us they really need time to review all of the data that we collect. We have tons and tons of it, and it's just about sifting through it to make sure that we get the right data points and we can address those areas. And then they really want more professional development opportunities. And so we're already starting to work on what that will look like for next year and how we can make that options for staff members at their comfort level, and so that they're moving forward in their own professional development to make sure that they acquire everything that they need to help our students.
Thanks, Dr. Lutz.
Dr. Johnson, if I could just bring in one further point for the members of the board. Just as a refresher, when we put together the Equity Action Plan and presented that in January, one of the points of feedback we received from the community in the surveys that were administered in the focus groups in the fall was the fact that we were concerned that some families never come to conferences, right? And so we want to do some thinking and some reflecting about how can we make sure that families feel welcome to come in and meet with teachers, ask questions, have them answered. And so surveying the parents who attended the conferences was a first step in starting to get some understanding about what families are seeking from those conferences. And then we're also trying to take a look at who attends and does not attend. For those of you who may not know, the spring conferences tend to be lower attendance than the fall conferences, right? And so we wanted to take a look at these spring conference results and see what might we do as we plan for the November conferences to make sure that all of our families feel welcome. So as Dr. Lutz mentioned, while we sent out the survey in 2 languages, we only received surveys back in English. So one of the areas of reflection for us is how can we engage our Spanish-speaking members of the community to make sure that they feel comfortable to ask us questions and provide us feedback in a language that's comfortable for them. And then in addition, some of the disaggregated data suggested we had very high results, very strong results our elementary parents who attended conferences, but most of our secondary parents did not complete the survey. So all of that data we are looking at to see what we can do to make sure that families feel that they are a part of the process in their children's education. So just wanted to highlight that, and I want to thank Dr. Johnston and the team of administrators for making sure that we got that survey off the ground this spring. It was a quick turnaround from the adoption of the Equity Action Plan to Parent-Teacher Conferences, and so we were really glad to get that started this spring.
Thank you, Dr. Yannick. And finally, just reminding you that we did purchase that Panorama Survey materials, and that Dr. Yannick and Dr. Lutz will be working to craft that information to get family and faculty feedback. Continuing to look at 360 degrees of feedback, continuing to make us better, and really respond to the concerns that have been raised so that we can break down those barriers. Any questions, any other questions on the Equity Action Plan? Okay. I just have a couple of little just updates. Obviously, I have referenced that Dr. Lutz has joined us. Dr. Lutz is our new Director of Support Services. Her responsibility in our office is to oversee federal programs, multi-tiered systems of support, our clinical team, and the Equity Action Plan. And so I'm excited for her to be here. She's made a great first impression. She's been out in the schools visiting our staff and our administrators. And so she's had a busy first week. But we're really glad that she's here. So I'm confident you'll see her regularly. I know you started the board meeting last week, but you'll see her here at these academic affairs meetings also. So welcome officially, Dr. Lutz.
Thank you.
As all of you know, or may be aware, depending on where your children might be in the school district, PSSA administration began yesterday at Erdenheim. Today at Erdenheim, it's only Monday. Today at Erdenheim and tomorrow at the middle school. We're doing ELA this week, math next week, and science the week after. There's science administration for grades 4 and 8. And so we are well underway with that process. Keystone administration begins at the high school for literature on the 19th of May. Algebra at the middle school and high school begins on the 23rd of May. And biology, the last assessment is the 25th of May. 25th and 26th. So that we are actively involved in the PSSA and Keystone administration this spring. The accountability requirements that were waived last year are not this year. So it is the expectation of the Department of Education that 95% of our students participate in these standardized assessments. So we are getting started. Our students are, I'm sure, very prepared. And I know our faculty are doing a great job of supporting them through this, this process. Any questions for me? Okay. Finally, our Act 158 update. As I think you're all aware, beginning with the graduation class of 2023, students are expected to demonstrate proficiency in algebra, biology, and literature. I'm sharing with you the pathway. There are 3 ways towards pathways to graduation. It is not only passing the Keystone. That is one way to demonstrate your proficiency. The Commonwealth created and published last year, Act 158 pathways. The composite pathway allows you to have some proficiency and an overall score, or third, either your CTE concentration, your alternative assessment, or evidence-based pathways. And there is criteria for each of those. Managing this at a small school district makes it feasible or possible for us to know on a student by student basis how they're doing, but it's still not practical to expect our administrators to dig hand by hand to figure out whether or not our students are prepared and have the demonstrated proficiency. So as you know, we use Linkit as our comprehensive data warehouse. Linkit is working with Dr. Scragan and I to create reports so that we're able to see with the school counselor and the district administration how students are faring and where they are. We're working on that as we speak so that we'll have a good understanding of our current junior class in preparation for next year on their pathways towards graduation. So I just wanted to assure each member of the board that we had that under consideration and are working with the building administration so that we can identify that and make sure that each student is prepared to graduate and meet those requirements. Any questions or comments for me about Act 158? Dr. Yannico, and that concludes my agenda items.
Yeah, so at this time, I believe we have 2 members in attendance from the community. Those members, if you use the raise hand feature, if you have any public comment, this would be the time to make that comment. And that can be addressed to the board. Dr. Etlin is our chairperson, and so really it would be directed to her. So we can find out, Mr. Wexler, if we have anybody with a raised hand. I'll check myself in the participants list. I see a raised hand. Mrs. Dowling. So Mr. Wexler, could you promote Mrs. Dowling to be able to ask her question or make her comment?
I think I'm unmuted.
We can hear you, Mrs. Dowling,
Okay.
yes.
I just wanted to thank you. I think that having the curriculum written out with what the kids are going to learn and being able to stay on top of that with your children, and also to alleviate any concerns because of things that, you know, you might hear are going to be in there, and being able to see if they are or if they're not, I think it is going to provide a lot of clarity for parents. So I just wanted to thank you for doing that.
Thanks,
Thank you, Mrs.
Dowling.
Dowling.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I see one other attendee. Are there any other comments or questions? Okay, I think that we're okay with regard to public comment. Members of the board, do you have any other questions or anything looking ahead to the June meeting, which would be our last meeting of the year? Do you have any other questions or requests of Dr. Johnson and the team with regard to our last academic affairs meeting for this school year?
Yes,
You were
I
hoping
do.
to learn this year.
Yeah, in terms of the Spartan Academy, if we could just see a framework of what that's going to look like for the students, that would be very helpful.
Okay, we'll bring that to the June meeting.
Okay, that would be great.
Unless you wanted to hear some information about that now, it's up to you. Or we could email you as well.
You can email me because I know you're still in the finalizing process. So, you know, you can even hold off on emailing me. You know, once you have your framework created, it just would be good to see those offerings for the summer.
We're all set, Dr. Edlin. I will happily share with you the registration information that we sent out to the whole school district.
Okay, great.
It has like a s'more flyer that you can click on so that you can see what each of the grade bands will be focusing on.
Oh, that's wonderful. Fantastic. And my
I'll
last
send a lot of
request, if I could just have handouts from today, I would appreciate that.
I have notes ready for you, Dr. Edlin.
All right, fantastic.
So Dr. Etlin, you'll be ready to make the report on May 3rd.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Is there anything else from the members of the committee that you were hoping to hear from us this spring?
No, but there was a lot of information given out today. And so when we go to our next board meeting, I know I've said this before, if you can, of course, Dr. Etlin's going to give a very thorough report, but if you can, again, point our parents to where they can go on the website. And again, the process of how they can view this meeting and they can digest it at home, that would really be helpful. To hear as someone is presenting is one thing, but I'm really invested in encouraging them to go on that website and get it for themselves so they can hear the questions, the conversations. And this was a very good meeting that had a lot of information, and I'd like that to come out in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Green. Actually, in my newsletter, which goes out at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, it's all scheduled to go out. There is a section on committee meetings that has links to all the concluded meetings. Now, this meeting, it'll just say go to the website, but there's a link to that section of the website. So yes, we would love for community members to be able to attend committee meetings and feel like they're a part of the process and can ask questions and learn about what we go through in order to make decisions and what the board goes through in order to decide whether or not to vote yay or nay on various agenda items. So we're happy to invite the public and want to make sure that people know when and where those meetings are. And if you miss them, where to go to get the information or watch the video. Thank you. Mrs. Hubley or Mr. DeFranco, any other questions or?
I don't have a question. I would just like to say, it looks like a lot of hard work and thoughtfulness went into all of what you presented today. And so I'm just grateful to all the people who put that time and energy into the presentation that was presented to us tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hubley.
Yeah, this
Dr.
was-
Campbell, I did just want to thank our building principals for being here and Dr. Lutz as well. So I think it's really helpful for our members of our school board to know how invested our building administrators and central office academic officers are in making sure that we work collectively and collaboratively as a team to bring this information to you. So I also want to thank them for their time this evening.
I wonder if we take that for granted because, you know, this is my only experience with the school district when it comes to seeing who participates, and the amount of face time we have from all the administrators at everything is, I don't know how you live your own lives, but I appreciate it. This is really, really great. This was a very informative meeting.
Thank you very much. Our administrative team is stellar. Tomorrow night, we'll all be at the Encanto sing-along at the middle school audience, right? With our ELD team, having some fun with our friends and family.
I'll be humming, no singing. So
No singing, just
I'm
humming.
really hoping my voice is back by then.
background humming. I'll be the background guy humming.
Well, just remember, we don't talk about Bruno, but we do sing about him a lot.
That's true. That is true. Good reference, Mr. DeFranco. I think
Very
that's probably a nice note for us to end on.
It's always a pleasure to see all of you. I appreciate your time this evening and engagement. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Dr. Etlin, you'll have the notes later this evening or tomorrow morning.
Sure. No, Ross, thank you so much for a very comprehensive and detailed meeting. I so appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you all.